Welcome to another Impactr X. My name is Marije, aka the Circular Fashion Detective, and I've teamed up with Impactr to do a series on fashion. Fashion is the second biggest polluting industry in the world, and obviously this cannot sustain, we need to change it. So the biggest problem actually with fashion comes from the textiles that go into the supply chain. And my fellow impact maker and fashion disruptor, Lili, is here today with me to talk about how we can do better with textiles and how we as consumers can make fashion a force for good. So Lili, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. I know you're super busy. You're doing a Kickstarter campaign for your shoes, and which
yes, a crowdfunding.
So yeah, introduce yourself.
A crowdfunding campaign. Yes. So my name is Lili, and I'm the founder of Wair, which is a shoe company which is making shoes from upcycled textile waste. And I brought them today. I will show you in a bit. But yeah, so we're planning our crowdfunding campaign right now. But of course, I want to be here today with you and discuss fashion and how people can do something to kind of lessen their impact with their fashion consumption. It's very important.
Yes. So let's get started. What do you think is the biggest reason why we are in the trouble we're in today?
So of course it's a very complex question, and there is a lot of reasons that kind of goes together and create this huge problem that the fashion industry presents. But I would say overall it can be explained through fast fashion, because fast fashion is like a result of many things. But overall what fast fashion does is that if you look at just from like 15 years ago, we have doubled the amount of clothing we buy, and at the same time the utilization rate has drastically fallen, so we actually keep it for half as long as we used to do. So I feel like that just shows really well what fast fashion has made us do and how unsustainable our fashion consumption has become.
Yeah, so the numbers you just mentioned, they come obviously from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, from their report called The New Textiles Economy. We'll drop a link in the comment below, so you can read it. Good. There is the longer version and the summary. Both are equally good. And yeah, so it's shocking, right? That our consumer behavior has changed and the way we produce has changed. And together they have led to this huge pile of waste that we're dealing with today. We see landfills, we see water contamination, air pollution. And the problem is that we here in the rich West, where we consume these clothes, we still tend to treat these supply chains as a closed kitchen. But it's just not enough anymore. It's time to wake up and do something, because the information is all out there. So what do you think is the first thing as a consumer to do in order to reduce your footprint in fashion?
I think the first thing to do, and I guess that's something that's being said a lot, and it goes for like every single thing where you want to kind of limit your impact, is to kind of become informed. And that could, for example, be through watching this, it can be through watching the different things, and we'll also link and read some different things, watch documentaries, because I think that for a lot of people, the impact that we have through our fashion consumption is invisible. We don't see it. We just go out and then we buy cheap clothes. And as you said to me before, like you have been like that, I've been like that.
Yeah, we're all guilty of it.
Yeah, we're all guilty.
No one is the same.
That's kind of how they want us. They want it to be. Like they want us to go out, and of course, because it's cheap, we want to buy it. And if we don't know the impact, of course we will do that. So I think the first step is kind of to be informed about when you buy a piece of clothing, what actually happens. I think that's definitely the first step.
I definitely agree with that. It starts with education. I mean, you know my personal story. For me, it started when, to be honest, I was a complete contributor to the fast fashion industry. I'm not gonna lie about that, but
dark secrets.
It's a serious topic, okay?
Yeah.
But then I watched The True Cost, and this tear-jerking documentary really changed my life. And but it doesn't stop there. It starts with it, and then you just realize how much information there is out there. And of course, this can be completely overwhelming, especially if you're not that much into reading all the scientific facts of what makes fashion bad and what can make fashion good. But it's every action you take. It really makes an impact, even though it's one step forward. It's still a step forward. So definitely, like, maybe even stop buying for 3 months or something. There are these challenges that I think it's in July that once was started by Fashion Revolution, or I don't remember who said, okay, in July we don't buy any textiles, because we've shifted from 4 fashion seasons to 52, and that's one of the biggest catalysts for this fast fashion industry to grow. Yeah. So it's all about how do we reverse back.
And that's also a great way to kind of become aware of how much you actually buy, because I think most people are just like, because you buy here and then you buy there, and it kind of becomes some kind of like an unconscious thing that you do. Yeah. So doing these challenges, although it's not necessary, I think is a good way to kind of become aware of how much you actually buy, because when you suddenly have to stop for like 90 days or how long you choose to do it, then you kind of realize, whoa, okay.
But also don't be too hard on yourself, because all these super rigid methods, they might actually do more harm to you in the long run than not, because it has to be part of your behavior, and habits are very hard to break. So if you start with something small, then the next step will become easier and easier and easier. And really, like, the more you read or the more you know, the less you are inclined to enter a fast fashion shop. I won't mention any names, but we all know what we're talking about here.
But I think you're right. So like step 1 is to become aware of the impact that you're having. A challenge could be something that could be a good way to start with doing, although of course it is not necessary. And I think another thing is to kind of appreciate what you already have. You also mentioned this, kind of like looking at what do you already have.
Basically shop your own closet. I think it's called Alternative. I don't know, there's just all these funny names popping up, but just use common sense and look at your closet, and the next time you open it and think, oh my god, I have nothing to wear, well, you literally have textiles in it. It's a closet filled with clothes. Be creative. If you don't like it, then either declutter your closet and sell your stuff, give it to a friend,
and never throw it away.
Just never ever throw it in the trash. That's the worst you can do, because the recycling system cannot handle it. It will just end up in landfill. It has a lot of toxic chemicals in it often, so
I think
just no bueno. Like,
it's no bueno.
Don't do it.
I think the thing is that right now we have like a very linear system in fashion, so it's very much like take and then you just waste. And I think one of the steps in order to become more sustainable, like for the whole fashion industry, is to become more circular. And that's where we really have to think about kind of like, how do we not get rid of our clothes? Like, first of all, appreciate what you already have in your closet. But then, when you have to get rid of something, have to discard something, never throw it away. And then one thing we talked about was kind of like the waste management hierarchy. So there are some different steps, and some steps are better. Of course, reuse is the best. So if you can, you should definitely give it to someone, sell it, or make it into something new that you could wear before you just throw it away or give it to recycling.
I mean, what actually already happens today is that clothes that get discarded and then, so to say, recycled, they don't really get recycled into new garments, but maybe they become the stuffing of a couch, or not this couch, I think, but they go to the auto industry. So it's not just the fashion industry; it's the textiles industry, because everything that has been man-made that you can touch, it's a textile. And so I think it's really important in terms of educating yourself that you start to understand, what is it that I'm wearing? What am I wearing so close to my skin? And is it actually good for me? Because today we're so worried about what we put in our bodies, but we tend to forget that our largest organ is actually the skin. So it's good to be more aware of that, because it really affects not just the environment in a positive manner, but also your personal life. I mean, I feel much better not having all these clothes that I'm never gonna wear. Maybe just, I don't know, to one event, and then I'm not wearing it anymore, and I completely changed in that. And it truly is life enriching, rather than what do you call it, like
Yeah,
stealing away
I think we all know
your
kind of
happiness.
like the thing where we kind of look at our closet and we feel like we have nothing to wear, and it's really frustrating.
Yeah.
Kind of knowing what you have in your closet and having clothes that you really love is like, it just like, I think it can really change your life in a more positive way. So there's also like
definitely.
personal gains from actually having
Yeah.
like a lower impact.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
your second skin. So if you buy something that you truly cherish, and you need to invest in it, because obviously the benefit of fast fashion is that it's so cheap, but it comes at a cost.
Yeah.
It's just we are not paying that cost. At the other end of the supply chain, people are paying for it. Not just by not getting enough money, but also by being put in, on like in conditions that are absolutely violating the human rights. And how can a garment be beautiful if you know that it's made in such a ugly way, right?
Yeah, that's
so
true.
being conscious is definitely the first step. But also just don't be too hard on yourself. Just realize that every step forward is a step forward.
Yeah. And then the 3 R's, kind of like, you know, when you
reduce, refuse, repair, recycle.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of R's
There's
actually.
like 7 of
You
them.
can go crazy with the R's, but
Yeah.
generally think like in circular terms instead of linear terms.
Yeah.
Like, do what you can so it doesn't just get sent
Yeah.
away to landfill or to incinerators, but that it actually keeps it in the loop. And if you can, like in the closest loop as possible. So of course the closest loop is that you reuse it, and then it
Yeah.
becomes like larger and larger.
And that you buy local, and that you know where your clothes come from, who they're made by.
Yeah. And we know it's difficult. It's not always easy, like when we just say, you know, like, oh, know who made your clothes and things like that, because of course it is like there's a lot of steps.
Yeah.
Like actually clothing consumption is one of the most polluting kind of practices, because there are so many steps that each requires so many resources. So
Yeah.
it's not easy to see from where you're standing in a shop buying your clothes to actually seeing, you know, who made it.
Yeah.
All the way like through all these different links.
And it's not the outlook is not that it's going to change fast unless we really act, because this is also what the Ellen MacArthur Foundation reported, that they found that in 2015 the carbon budget spent by the fashion industry took 2%, and it's forecasted that by 2050 this percentage will be 26%. So
Of the
more
total
than
carbon
more
budget.
than 1/4 of the total carbon budget that we have available as a society, it will be taken up by the fashion industry.
Yeah.
So
when we
it's
talk
time for
about
change.
when we talk about like that there is no planet B, like I think sometimes people think it's just fashion, but fashion has this huge impact, and we really need to take it seriously if we want to, you know, like make sure.
Yeah. It's not just a fun thing. It's serious business and science. It's a cross-disciplinary field, and but it can be fun, but you just need to interact with it in a responsible way. So read up on goal number 12, responsible consumption or production.
Yeah,
Because
because
they're both
they are
equally
very
important, because they're very
they're
integrated.
interlinked. Yeah, because you as a consumer, like sometimes it can feel like, but I have no power. It's all these all these big companies who has all the impact, and they're choosing, you know, like what they're doing, but they're listening to us as consumers, and we can make it very clear what we want, and they are already starting to listen. Like you can already see in all the shops, they all have like, this is recycled something, and you know, this is our green collection and things like that.
Well,
So,
beware of greenwashing, of
Yes,
course, but that's another
definitely
topic.
beware.
Maybe we'll go into that another time.
Yeah.
Because that's a topic I can talk about for hours.
Same.
Yeah.
But it does show that they're listening. They might not be doing it in the completely right way, but they are listening, and it does show that we have an impact with what we buy.
I mean, think about it. Which brands exist without any customers?
Yeah.
Right? So if there's no customers, there is no company. So if we stop buying from the bad brands, they will go out of business. And if we start buying from the good brands, they will become bigger and maybe even be able to reduce their prices, because then they can scale up their production. So every brand was once a small one, and the ones that are doing good are the ones that deserve our support, and they get our support by spreading the word, by buying from them, just to begin with. But the most important as a consumer is just first look at what you already own and just take it from there.
Yeah. Should we maybe talk a little bit about like what we talked about earlier? So I think, you know, those are kind of like the basics that we covered, you know, like become aware of your impact and kind of appreciate what you already have, and then vote with your values,
or your wallet.
Exactly. But at the same time, then there's also some things that you might not know that you kind of get to know, as we have done when you get further into kind of the fashion industry. You get to know what is it that makes a sustainable garment or a sustainable shoe. So maybe we should talk about kind of those like
production.
Production.
Definitely. So because today I wanted to emphasize goal number 12, so responsible consumption and production. Now we talked about consumption and production, so that refers to actually the majority of people involved in making the clothes that we wear, and often it starts with the design process. And for me, I think it really starts with the materials, and then comes the designer who turns a good material into something that is aesthetically pleasing, so that consumers will want to buy it and use it. But there's so much waste still in the design process, because if you think about how a piece of garment is made or how it's first designed, the designer takes fabric, uses samples, but then what happens with those samples? Those samples don't actually go into a final product that ends up with the consumer. It ends up somewhere else, and that somewhere else can often also be landfill. So it's a complex supply chain, and we won't go into too much details, but I think it's really important to understand how those steps work. Like, where do your clothes come from? It's not that you order them online and they're made in one day. No, it's a whole. I mean, maybe they are, but it's a complex system.
Definitely. And one thing, like one way we can see that is if you look at a garment that you have at home. Often it would be made from a lot of different materials. You know, maybe a jacket, it has both buttons, it has metal parts, it has plastic probably, some kind of polyester. So the disassembling
is almost impossible, and if you can't disassemble it,
you can't recycle
it, you can't compost it, it's not biodegradable, and
I think that's something that's
a mess, and it's not good design.
Yeah, and that's something that's mostly not visible to us because it's something that happens in the design process. But we as consumers can think about kind of like what garments, like what type of clothes and shoes are we buying, and kind of just look at it. How many materials is it made of? Like, will this be easy to recycle, or will it not be easy to recycle? So of course it's very complex, and there's a lot of discussions going around, like, should we do monomateriality, so for example only have 100% cotton, 100% wool and things like that, or should we have like mix? But I think in general we also need to think of our garment. What impact does it have in the use phase? And there we can talk about, for example, microplastic, because our clothes is actually one of the things, you wash it, you walk around in it, and it shreds a lot of microfibers. And if your clothes is made of polyester, if it's made of a plastic material, so polyester, nylon, all these different fabrics, it means that every time you're washing
synthetic materials, they're made from petrochemicals. So like you said, every time you wash it, it sheds microfibers, and these then end up in our drinking water. Scientists have actually already found plastics in Arctic ice, so it is in a stream in our oceans, and that means it affects sea life and life on Earth. So it's
I think it because we all have seen these movies where there's like trash, like plastic, big pieces of plastic ending up in like the stomachs of whales or birds and all these different things. But in reality, the biggest problem when it comes to this is actually the microplastic that you can't even see. It's so small that it's a big part of all the ocean plastic we have is microplastic. So even though it's invisible, it's still a very big problem. And clothing, like the major part of microplastic is actually clothing. I think it's over 1/3 that comes from textiles. So that's definitely something we need to think about. What is the material input of the clothing that you're wearing? And then how many materials is it made of? Will it be easy to recycle or upcycle at the end of its life?
So I think what's very important when it comes to materials is to look for new materials. So for example, there is hemp and modal and tencel. So tencel is a trademark name. It's made from wood pulp basically. And this is more sustainable than cotton. Also, it's so much better. It's softer. It has this silky touch. So why would you not look for better materials? Because they make fashion a lot more fun, actually. And the beauty of these materials is that they're 100% compostable, which means that should your clothes end up in landfill, they will be given back to the soil and become a nutrient. That's what circular fashion is, that you go full circle. So you start with the raw material, it goes into the supply chain, becomes a product, you use it, and then you can give it back to where it came from, basically. So definitely we need to focus about material diversity, better design, so design for disassembly.
Design for disassembly, being that, that all the clothes that we have, that if it's made of a lot of different materials, that you can easily take it apart. This is something that's not being done a lot at the moment. Like if you go into a store, you will not find clothing that is made for disassembly, but it's something that's coming up.
But it's coming, exactly.
Definitely.
And it's worth waiting for, like Christmas.
Like there's actually a thread that's being developed right now, that where you sew with it, if you put it in the microwave afterwards, it actually dissolves, so you can take it apart, and then it can be made from like different materials, and you can, for example, take the zipper out afterwards. So things are coming, and if we keep like requiring from the shops, from the companies, that we want sustainable fashion, then I think
we can make it happen. We can truly make an impact.
Yeah, it's like right there. There's a lot of different innovations that are like right there and ready to be implemented. Definitely.
So I think that's it for today, Lili. Thank you again so much. By the way, let's have a look at your shoes.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I actually wore
these today. Can you tell me a little bit? They're
so they're a little bit.
But it's still winter. It's still winter.
That's
Maybe
true.
it's not the best for winter.
That's true.
But can you tell me a bit about
maybe
the materials?
Maybe we can talk
products
about what we just talked about, but in the shoes. So these shoes are actually made from textile waste. So when I say upcycled, it means that we've actually just used the textile waste as it is. So this is, for example, made from jeans, and we also have some that is made from workwear. So we actually just, instead of, because recycling is often when you take the fabric and then you shred it and you make it into a new fabric and then you make it into clothes or shoes. But we think a lot of this fabric is actually really good. It still has a lot of value in it. There might just be a little stain or a little, like a little hole here or somewhere in your pants. But it doesn't mean that the rest of it is still not like in good quality. So we will be using that to make
not my
shoes.
size, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. I can wear them. So we've actually tried to kind of implement those different principles of design, like design for monomateriality, design for disassembly, and these different things.
Yeah.
So it's very exciting.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you so much, and thank you guys for watching.
Thank you.
Hoping to do another episode again soon of Impactr, and so for any questions, reach out to me or drop a comment, and let's make fashion circular. Bye bye.
Should we do some more kind of like